Hello and welcome to Elevate Your Wealth. I'm Casey Elkins, co-founder and managing partner at Elevated Financial Management. We've got a really exciting show today talking about a number of different topics. We'll start with income and making sure that it's reliable through your retirement. I'm joined as always by my friend, father-in-law and business partner, Mark Stimpson, but we also have another face here with us today, Stephen O'Flynn. He's been with us here before, but it's nice to have you back in the studio today, Steve. How you doing?
Thank you, Mark. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing really good. Glad to be with our viewers as always, and looking forward to this show because I think we're going to start with income and how critical it is that that's set in a guaranteed way, right? Because that is the foundation for everybody's retirement.
It really is. Yeah, it's an important piece to the puzzle. Before we get into the income, Steve, we've talked about it before. You've got an accent. I'm sure the audience wants to know, where are you from?
And that's right, Casey. Yes. I'm from Coventry, England. And if you think of England, it's a pretty small country. Coventry is slap bang in the middle of England. It's a pretty industrial area. And if any of you are familiar with Jaguar cars, that's the home of Jaguar cars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And also taxes. We do speak about taxes quite a bit. Lady Godiva famously protested against taxes, and that was in Coventry about 400 years ago.
Oh, there we go.
There's
okay.
There's a little bit about Coventry there.
Oh, that's great. I had no idea. Yeah, thanks for filling us in.
Of course, yeah.
You historian,
Wow, it's my hometown, very proud of it too.
That's great. Well, we're excited to have you here with us today, Steve. Just a reminder for our audience, Steve is an advisor at Elevated Financial Management. We love having him there. We've got a wonderful team, and we'd love to see you all in the office one day. But before we get into that, let's talk about reliability of income. So, Mark, maybe just very high level, that reliability of income, why is that so important to a retirement plan?
It needs to be the bedrock. I think any of us know that have worked maybe. I'd like to bring up Boeing for just a moment. Boeing is a bedrock company in the Pacific Northwest. We've got a lot of Boeing retired clients, ones that are getting ready to retire. And the sad reality for a lot of those that are working now, they voted their pension out about probably 14 years ago or so, and they struck about maybe a year and a half now, settled the strike, but what they wanted back was their pension. And Boeing was never going to do that. They got off the hook years ago. They'll never go back to that, even though it is really beneficial to those that work at a plant like Boeing or Weyerhaeuser because of the reliability of the income that it's going to generate, right? It is that reliability or that paycheck for life that you can count on that is the bedrock for every plan that we do. So if you don't have a pension, which most people don't today, you're going to need to create one. So what's the best way to use the money that you do have in whatever bucket? Those that have been watching our show know that in our office we keep it simple. There's a red bucket, a green bucket, and a yellow bucket. The red bucket is money in the market. The green bucket is their income bucket, and the yellow bucket is their liquidity bucket, right? And if you have money in each one of those buckets with a specific purpose, you can have a successful retirement. But it does start with the reliability of the income, or our green bucket.
Right, that's exactly right. That reliability of income, you know, we hear about ROI, right? ROI is return on investment, right? Very common in the world to be discussed. In retirement, we shift from return on investment to reliability of income.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's really what this is all about. That's what creates true success in a retirement plan, is to have that reliable income to make sure that you can do the spending that you want to do in retirement. Steve, maybe you could fill us in on some of the pitfalls that come along with taking your income from very volatile type assets.
Exactly. So really, we were looking to have our clients have their basic needs met at the very minimum with reliable income. And as Mark says here, there's no defined pension plans. It's just so hard to get those now. We know they're a thing of the past. So what we try and do is try and solve that income gap, at least meeting the very basic needs. And again, creating an income from the red bucket is probably most important because we don't want our clients to be subject to market risk. So we'd be looking to maybe move a bit more conservatively and move at least a portion of those assets from red into green to provide that reliable income.
Absolutely.
That would be a great start.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Yeah.
it, right? And that's really what it is when we get to retirement. It's about positioning ourselves the right way. And we'll talk more about that accumulation versus decumulation when we come back from our break. But I think, Mark, you had something you wanted to add,
Yeah,
too.
I just wanted to say, why did I know my grandparents, they never talked about money. There was a very specific reason, because they had pensions. So they always had that monthly amount coming in, and they were not spending what was coming in on a regular basis. So again, that's why grandparents and some of our parents had pensions, and now that they're gone, that has changed the landscape for true retirement planning. Probably the number one change has been that. So what is that? That's about income, right? So how do we replace that income in a guaranteed way? That's what this is all about. And you've got to find a very successful and guaranteed way to do that. Otherwise, as Steve just mentioned, if you're planning that retirement income to be based on market assets, you could be sorely in trouble when the market doesn't behave the way we want it to, because then you're going to have to sell assets, right, at a loss, take a amount of money out, which we do at the colleges. We have a specific class on this, or segment on this, and it can devastate your retirement plan. In fact, it could be the difference between having a successful retirement and a total failure when it comes to retirement. Is if you're basing it on the red bucket and the market turns the wrong way, you may fail at retirement, which is the last thing any of us want.
Yeah, it's all about being purpose-built, right?
Yep.
That's really what this comes down to, is being purpose-built, purpose-driven with the type of planning that we're doing. I always like this illustration. I'm a car guy, so you folks might have heard this before, but you don't buy a big truck for good gas mileage, and you don't buy a Prius to tow a boat. You've got to use the right tool in the right application, and if you don't, you're going to be disappointed with the tool, whether it's a good tool or not. If you use it in the wrong way, it's not going to work the way that you want it to. And so that's where having a retirement plan is so important, to make sure that you've got the right pieces in the right place and that you're using each tool to its strength. So for you watching at home, we've opened up 10 spots on our calendar. The number to give us a call at is 844-342-7142. We will sit down with you. We will give you our time, completely complimentary, no obligation, and we will build a written financial plan. We'll talk about your income and how reliable it is. We'll talk about the risk that you're taking, what type of fees you're paying in your current investments, what to do for Social Security and Medicare. All those concerns, those things that we talk about each and every week here on the show, that's all included in our plan. 844-342-7142. You can also scan the QR code there at the bottom of the screen, and that'll give you an opportunity to set an appointment to come and chat with us in our office right here in Renton, Washington. We're going to talk more about accumulation versus decumulation, before retirement and after retirement, and what needs to change to make sure that you're successful through the complete length of your retirement. So don't change the channel. Come right back to Elevate Your Wealth.
Call 844-342-7142 to receive your complimentary written financial plan and Social Security optimization report. Get the most from Social Security payments. Find a strategy that maximizes your Social Security benefit and preserves the assets you've saved for retirement. Social Security seems easy, right? The question is, should you take it now or later? There are numerous ways to take Social Security. The decisions you make can also affect how much you pay in taxes. You've paid into Social Security for decades. Now you want to make sure you optimize your retirement income. Call Mark Casey and their team at 844-342-7142 for your complimentary written financial plan and Social Security maximization report. You need a retirement income plan that accounts for all your assets. Call Casey, Mark, and their team right now at 844-342-7142 to receive your complimentary written financial plan and Social Security maximization report. Or use the QR code on the screen to schedule your appointment today.
You've got quite an extensive resume. Wow, so many years of management. Bet that was fun. So this job requires basic knowledge of the social media and video platforms, content creation, and SEO. How proficient are you in those areas?
Going back to work after retiring is not ideal. Plan your retirement right. Call now for your own complimentary portfolio review and tax analysis. Welcome back to Elevate Your Wealth. I'm Casey Elkins. I'm joined by Mark Stimpson and Stephen O'Flynn. And today we're talking about income in your retirement and creating the income that you need. Now, as you get to retirement, things start to change. And I think everybody feels that as they're moving to retirement. They know that something is different, but creating the correct retirement plan has got to be set up in just a specific way and using the right tools and the right applications to make sure that you're a success. So we talk about accumulation versus decumulation. Steve, maybe you can help fill in our audience. What are those two things and what's the difference between the two? Why do things need to change as we get close to retirement?
Exactly, and it is kind of financial speak, financial lingo, but accumulation is that period before retirement, before you hit that retirement red zone, we call it. So you've ridden the market out, you've probably been through 2008, hopefully you didn't have too many emotional decisions then and you stayed in the market and then enjoyed that growth. So accumulation, you have a longer time horizon. Deaccumulation is also known as the distribution phase. So that is preparing for and entering into retirement with the nest egg that you've built. And there's two different plans. There's one plan for accumulation where you've got that long time horizon to ride out market volatility, and it's a completely different plan for the deaccumulation stage, the distribution stage, where we factor in Social Security, taxes, legacy planning, and so on.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And just based on the way you described it, Steve, things are much more complicated in the decumulation phase, right? Yeah. Accumulation is really kind of single-faceted, and ultimately it's really just about building the biggest nest egg that we can. But decumulation is a completely different set of rules, and I'll just say it now, we've said it before, but I think it's important, so we'll emphasize it. What made you successful as you were building your wealth for retirement is not the same thing that will keep you successful through your retirement. And that is really the crux of what we're talking about. What would you say about that, Mark?
You know, Steve mentioned this, right? Going up the mountain is a lot easier. We basically are in it to grow it as quickly and as fast. And even safety isn't as important in the accumulation phase, like Steve just mentioned. I mean, we can go through some down periods, and if emotion doesn't take over, we're going to ride the train back up. The problem is a lot of individuals got emotional about it. They made decisions, let's say in 2000 or 2008, got out of the market, and they missed a complete run-up. But a decumulation or coming down, what we call the mountain, is totally different. Because if you don't factor in how taxes are going to affect you, what are you going to do when it comes to your RMDs? What about taxation of Medicare and Social Security? You need to have a plan for those items, right? As Steve mentioned, legacy planning. How do we want to move assets to our children in the best possible way? And again, so much of it comes back to taxes, right? So coming down the mountain is way more complicated than going up. And what I will say is the people that 99% of the people that help build our wealth, a wealth accumulation advisor, is not the one that should really be doing the decumulation or the distribution of those plans, because they don't have experience in so many of the topics that we need to have a lot of knowledge about, right? Because those issues can make you a success or a failure. So you want to be working with someone that specializes in this field, which is exactly what Elevated Financial Management does. That's our wheelhouse, is help people come down the mountain.
Yep. And you know what? I appreciate what you said about emotional decisions too, because if you think about any emotional decision in your life, not just finances, but I think about any decision I've made in my life, and the higher my level of emotion surrounding that decision, probably the worse the decision was, right? Yeah. And that's really the case when it comes with investments too. And even more so because there is so much pressure when it comes to investing to make sure that not only are you doing the right thing, but this, and people know this, it's going to affect potentially the rest of your life, right? If you make that wrong decision as you're approaching retirement, or you don't save in the right way, or you take too much risk or not enough risk, those are things that are going to maybe eat you up in retirement if you don't make the right choice. And so that's why we're always focused on what we're talking about and trying to get the emotion out of the investment decisions. The emotion needs to be in the retirement plan, because that's what this is all about, but it shouldn't be in the investment decisions, right? That's what this really comes down to. Now, there's another thought that we've talked about before, but I'll bring it up again. We're talking about accumulation versus decumulation. And Steve, you know, sometimes people will think that decumulation is really just accumulation in reverse, right? And that's about as complicated as it gets. But that's really not the case, is it? There's a lot more to it than that.
Oh, there really is, yeah. And I got a quote from a recent article that 54% of baby boomers and Gen Xers are fearful about outliving their savings, which is up 48% in the last year.
Wow.
And so one of the important questions we do ask somebody who's sitting opposite us is, how long did your parents live?
Absolutely.
And we're hearing 90s, 93, 94, centurions, over 100. And why is that important to ask a question? Because we call it longevity risk. We really don't want you to run out of money. I mean, that would be the worst. You outlive your money. So
yeah, that's the biggest concern, right? And let's talk about that more when we come back from our break, because that really is the biggest concern that retirees have year after year, making sure that they don't run out of funds in retirement. And we know why that's their biggest fear, because that's the biggest risk, right? If you run out of money in retirement, you really don't have many other choices. Realistically, you're probably not at an age to go back to work, and you probably don't want to go back to work, so that means you have to live less in retirement, and that's not what anybody's really looking for. Now, Steve, you mentioned something, and Mark, maybe I'll throw this to you, about longevity risk, right? Now, we've got a kind of another term that we call that, right? The great risk multiplier. And that's a big deal, because the longer that somebody lives, the more exposed they are to the risks that are potentially out there, and the more secure that planning has to be.
Yeah, in fact, I'm glad you mentioned this, because if we live longer, the odds of maybe needing long-term care go through the roof. I watched my grandfather. He didn't go in a nursing facility until he was 91, and he basically, they lost everything financially due to the cost of long-term care for him. He had Alzheimer's pretty bad. And so, again, longevity risk is something that we need to talk about. But the investment and tax strategies that we use to build wealth is totally different than it is when we are decumulating or taking distributions. So you really want to be working with someone that specializes in this arena. So please, if you're watching today, pick up the phone and call us at 844-342-7142, because we're going to deal with these strategies we've been talking about. We're going to help you figure out the best tax strategy for you. Should you do Roth conversions? What about taxation of your Social Security? Is there any way to reduce that? We're also going to look at your income. Is it guaranteed? Do you have a pension? Or do you have a gap that we need to fill because you don't have a pension? What about Medicare? What do I do as far as a Medicare supplement or a Med Advantage plan? This and so much more is going to be addressed in our office. And if you come in, we're going to give you a copy of our book, Break the Glass. I think you'll find this a very interesting read, and it's short. You can do it in less than an hour. So please call 844-342-7142. Come into our office. Keep your checkbook at home. Let's just have a conversation. And again, that number is 844-342-7142.
Thank you very much, Mark. Again, for our audience at home, this is an opportunity for a no obligation, completely complimentary written financial plan, custom tailored just to what you're looking to accomplish in your retirement. You see the phone number on the screen, the QR code, give it a scan. That'll allow you to set an appointment to come in and have a conversation with us so that we can figure out what you'd like to accomplish in your retirement. We're going to talk more about income in retirement and making sure that it's stable, and we're going to run through a scenario as well when we come back from our break. So don't change the channel. Come back to Elevate Your Wealth.
Call 844-342-7142 for your own complimentary written financial plan with Risk Report. Why take unnecessary risk when you don't have to? At 65 years old, would you drive to the grocery store at 100 miles an hour if 40 miles an hour would get you there safely? When nearing retirement, are you still driving your investment accounts like you're in your 30s or 40s? Have you changed your investment elections since you first chose them in your retirement accounts at work? Call Casey, Mark, and the team at 844-342-7142 for your own investment risk report and written financial plan. Do you know exactly how much risk you're taking in your investment accounts? Now that you've accumulated a nest egg for retirement, you want to be certain the risk you're taking in those investments matches your goals and objectives. Call Mark, Casey, and their team at 844-342-7142 for your own complimentary risk report and written financial plan. Or use the QR code below to begin scheduling your appointment. You may not have time to recover from taking too much risk. Are you taking too much risk with your retirement or not enough? Most people aren't sure. That's why we created the Risk Quiz. In just a few minutes, it helps you understand your personal risk tolerance. Your risk score could reveal why your current investments might feel too aggressive or too conservative. It's simple, fast, and can be eye-opening. Scan the QR code or go to elevatedquiz.com to take the quiz and find out if your money matches your mindset.
Hello and welcome back to Elevate Your Wealth. I'm your host, Casey Elkins. Today we're talking about income, and right now we're going to talk about the biggest concern that retirees consistently have. No matter what survey it is, we see that they're always concerned about running out of money. Even in our office, right guys? Even in our office, we see that's the biggest concern that people have. They're concerned that they're going to outlive their money. And Steve, you mentioned that we like to ask folks, how long did your parents live? How long did your grandparents live? Because it helps to give us an idea of what that potential time frame is that we need to plan for. The last thing we want to do is to plan you a 20-year retirement and you make it to 21, right? That's not going to work. So we need to make sure that the income is going to outlast the folks that we work with. And we get why people are so concerned about it and why this has to be addressed, right, Steve?
That's right, yeah. And back in the day, software planning, financial planning software would go up to age 100. And it would plan for that. And we know now that 100 is really achievable for most people. Certainly those people born, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. So yeah, we have the tools. We look at the assets combined, and there's one thing that we always like to aim for our clients: the word guaranteed income, and that means guaranteed for their lifetime. And in some cases with a spouse, we would almost certainly say guaranteed for the spouse's lifetime or whoever lives longer. That's one of our key aims when we run the numbers and use our software, just absolutely making sure that they have the minimum guaranteed amount for their lifetimes.
That's it. Yeah, and that helps to create confidence, right? Because that's really what this is about. People are concerned about running out of money, and the way to solve that is with confidence. And knowing that their income is going to last is what gives them the confidence, right? Now, I think this is really interesting. We've got a few articles and studies here that we brought along with us to share this information with our audience. And here's a quote from a Nationwide individual at Nationwide. It says, "I've been told by our advisors that a number of their well-to-do clients struggle to spend money in retirement out of fear that they'll spend too much." Now, I want to highlight this. It says well-to-do clients.
Yep.
So if these are folks that have multi-millions, let's say, how much more so are potentially those that have 400 or 500,000 or 800,000? Those smaller values, still a large chunk of money, but a smaller value in comparison to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
How much more important for them to make sure that they can have the confidence as they move into retirement too? And so this is something that we've got to be addressing, right, Mark?
Yeah, this is something that we talk about this. You've heard us on our show, our radio show, television show. We're never going to stop talking about this because people are so worried about running out of money. And if they don't have the green bucket or the reliability of guaranteed income set, and they're going to try and do that off of the red asset, and the market goes the wrong way, they're going to have to they got two choices, right? They got to pare down their lifestyle, or they have a chance of running out of money, right, if they take a distribution at the wrong time. So again, having money set that's guaranteed for life, as Steve just mentioned, my mom is still alive. She's 91 years old. She could easily make it the way she's going. She could make it to 100. So if your money runs out at 95 and you are now 96, how's that going to feel, right? We talk about this all the time. It boils back to guaranteed income. That's why I love Social Security so very much. It's guaranteed to pay you for you and your spouse's lifetime. That's what we all deserve. That's what we work for. It does turn it needs to be turned into income. And how many times, as Casey said, you could have a big 401k and have, I'm going to use $1 million. And I got $1 million, and I go over to McDonald's and say, I got $1 million in my 401k here, so can I have several burgers? And what are they going to tell you, right? No, you got to turn it into income at some point. That's why we save this money to begin with. It's to turn it into income. So what's the best way to do it, right? That's what this all boils down to, right? And some people want to they're afraid to turn it into a private pension for some reason, and they'd rather take the risk of keeping it in the red bucket. And that can be dangerous, because if that sequence of return hits at the wrong time and the market goes down and you continue to draw out, you can run out of money way earlier than you ever dreamed was going to happen.
That's it, and really, again, it comes down to solving these problems and being purpose-built and specific with the type of planning that we're doing. And realistically, creating confidence for the folks that we get to work with, right? And I'll just say that if you're listening at home, if you've got a plan from another group that you've been working with, my question to you is, does that plan account for all the things that we're talking about on our show? Does it account for creating the income that you need sustainably and reliably? Does it account for the taxes that you're going to have to pay? Does it show you the optimal time to start your Social Security? Have they helped you discuss whether you're going to take Med Advantage or Med Supplemental? What about creating a trust for your retirement? These are all things that have to be addressed that create a true written financial plan. And unfortunately, if they're not addressed, we see people come in all the time that have a plan but don't have confidence in the plan, right?
Exactly.
And that's what this ultimately comes down to, is the license for you to go live your retirement and do what you'd like to do and enjoy your time without concern of what's happening in the world around you and living your retirement in fear of running out of money.
Yeah.
So, Mark, the phone number's on the screen. Would you share with our audience what they can expect if they give us a call?
Yeah, so please, that number is 844-342-7142. If this show has created a little bit of anxiety in your life about certain issues, whether it's taxes or my income, is it guaranteed, health situation. We didn't talk much on this show about long-term care planning, but we are going to address that big time in the office. What about, Casey just mentioned, how do I move money to my children in the best way? Legacy planning, we call that legacy planning. What about estate planning? This and so much more is going to be addressed. We're going to have nothing but a conversation. Keep the checkbook at home, because you're not agreeing to work with us and we're not agreeing to take you on as a client. So please, pick up the phone, come and see us, and if you do, we're going to give you a copy of our book, which we're very proud of, Break the Glass. Call 844-342-7142. Let's have a conversation.
Thank you so much, Mark. It's been really nice being here with you guys today. We love having our audience with us as well. It's been so nice having you here each and every week, where we talk about the topics that are top of mind for you. Come back next week and we'll talk about more right here on Elevate Your Wealth.